And we are back for prepping for winter with the second Arianne sample chapter. So far, Arianne has been journeying through the Stormlands to the Golden Company in a parallel to Bran journeying to the Three-Eyed Crow. The Stormlands have been filled with misinformation, of which some Arianne has been relaying back to her father. After finally meeting Mud and Chain of the Golden Company, Arianne has been trying to determine the company's plans and how powerful they are. And now let's continue. Young John Mudd had been sending out birds as well, it seemed. Near dusk on the fourth day, not long after Chain and his wagons had taken their leave of them, Arianne's company was met by a column of sellswords down from Griffin's Roost, led by the most exotic creature that the princess had ever laid her eyes on, with painted fingernails and gemstones sparkling in his ears. Lysonomar spoke the common tongue very well. "I have the honor to be the eyes and ears of the Golden Company, Princess." So halfway through Arianne's journey to Griffin's Roost, Lysono Mar appears to take over for Mud and Chain. Lysono is a suspicious character and certainly one to watch as we go further into our story. He is the spy master for the Golden Company and shares a number of similarities with Varys. Besides both being spy masters, Lysono claims to be Lyseni, which is Varys' birth city supposedly. The two are also described as being off-puttingly feminine for being men, and this is likely a deliberate disguise for both of them, as we know that Varys is a master of disguise, and Lysono Mar once dressed up like a traitor, snuck into Volantis, and consorted easily with smugglers and pirates. Additionally, the two of them seem to act more as advisors and manipulators than simply spy masters. When the Golden Company is considering their options outside of Volantis, Lysono gives some pretty odd advice. He disparages Daenerys, saying she's either scared, crazy, or lazy for not leaving Meereen, and he shoots down the idea of going to meet Dany, claiming that the Golden Company has too many men to logistically get to Slaver's Bay, and tells them that the city is blockaded anyway. Of course, there are certainly ways around these hurdles, and I'm not sure why the spy master is weighing in on all of this. But the big thing that suggests that Lysono is nefariously pushing for an Aegon-Dany split is that he claims that Dany isn't needed since Aegon the Conqueror took Westeros without eunuchs. This is almost laughable advice, as Dany was wanted for her dragons, not her eunuchs, and it's dragons themselves that allowed Aegon the Conqueror to take Westeros. Another interesting take on the line about taking Westeros without eunuchs is that young Griff is taking Westeros with the help of a eunuch, Varys. Now there are a couple other things to note about Lysono in this passage. Those gemstones in his ears, those are amethysts, meaning they very well may be the Strangler. The other thing is that he speaks the common tongue very well and is a master of disguise, much like Varys, so he may not actually be Lyseni. Like a Targaryen, Arianne insisted. His eyes were a pale lilac, his hair a waterfall of white and gold. All the same, something about him made her skin crawl. Was this what Viserys looked like, she found herself wondering? If so, perhaps it's a good thing he is dead. So quite strikingly, Arianne is creeped out by Lysono, and this is actually a parallel to Ned's first meeting with Varys, who also made Ned's flesh crawl. Interestingly, Arianne immediately thinks of Viserys when looking upon Lysono and wonders if he looked similar. Of course, Arianne is completely forgetting that Darkstar had Valyrian features and she was very much attracted to him. Now, Viserys did have lilac eyes, but there's actually one other character who is associated with lilac, and that is Varys, who smells of it. Of course, we don't know Varys' eye color or hair color as he's bald, and some suppose that Varys might have Valyrian blood. "I'm flattered. The women of House Targaryen are said to be without peer in all the world." "And the men of House Targaryen?" "Oh, even prettier, though if truth be told, I've only seen the one." So here Lysono seems to identify as a woman. Again, we are being beaten over the head with the similarities to Varys. Varys has been neutered or had his sex removed, while Lysono is cross-gendered. And so we have two gender-bending spy master, advisor, manipulator, master of disguise, master of languages, lilac-associated characters who make people's skin crawl. Now Lysono claims that he's only met one Targaryen. Lysono should be referring to Aegon here, but Dany specifically says that Viserys met the Golden Company and was denied help. So shouldn't Lysono have met two Targaryens? Well, we aren't sure. There are some options here. Lysono may be new to the Golden Company, or maybe he just didn't attend the dinner that Viserys was at, or maybe he's simply lying. Some wonder that Lysono is saying that he did meet Viserys and that it's Aegon who is not really a Targaryen. Thus, Lysono really did only meet one Targaryen, Viserys. That said, Lysono very explicitly claims that Aegon is a Targaryen later on, so I doubt this. Whatever the case, considering Lysono is a big lying spy master type, we shouldn't really put too much stock in what he says one way or the other. Mar took her hand in his own and kissed her lightly on the wrist. Mistwood sent word of your coming, sweet princess. We'll be honored to escort you to the roost, but I fear you have missed Lord Connington and our young prince. Off at war? Off to Storm's End? Just so. So here we find out that Jon Con has supposedly left Griffin's Roost to head to Storm's End. This is a very interesting claim when we think about the timeline. You see, in the Griffin Reborn chapter, Jon Con takes Griffin's Roost and then sends a letter to Doran Martell. The next day, he then says he will leave for Storm's End in 11 days. Now there is Raven traveling time, and we don't know exactly how long Doran took to react to the letter, but once Arianna begins her journey, she spends 2 nights in the desert, 1 at Ghost Hill, 1 on the ship, 1 in Weeping Town, 1 in the cave, 1 at Mistwood, and 4 on the road. That's again 11 days. Even if we add in the Raven flying time and Doran waiting a few days before dispatching Arianna, this still means that Jon Con would have received a raven about Arianna from young Jon Mudd before departing Storm's End. So Jon Con had time to consider and possibly incorporate Arianna into his scheming before he left. This is somewhat important, as we should remember that Jon Con is going to try to take Storm's End by trickery. However, we also know that taking Storm's End is supposed to be a display of power, mainly for the Dornish's sake. These two ideas are in contradiction. Jon Con needs to rely on trickery precisely because he has insufficient power, and yet he must make it look like he has great power to pull in the Dornish to his side. This means that whatever trickery Jon Con is planning for taking Storm's End, he really must keep it from Arianna. Now in this passage, Lysono also calls Aegon the young prince. I'm uncertain why everyone keeps calling Aegon a prince rather than a king. Jon Con does this too, so it's not just Lysono. Perhaps they are waiting to install Aegon before changing his title. Lysono also uses the phrase just so, which is a fairly common phrase across the Narrow Sea. We hear Braavosi, Pentashi, Tyrashi all use this phrase, so I suppose it's normal for a supposed Lyseni to use it as well. The Lyseni was a very different sort of man than Chane. This one will let nothing slip, she realized, after a scant few hours in his company. Mar was glib enough, but he had perfected the art of talking a great deal whilst saying nothing. As for the riders who had come with them, they might as well have been mutes for all that our own men were able to get out of them. So here we find out that Lysono and his company, in contrast to Chane, reveal nothing to Arianna. Part of this may be that Arianna's feminine charms do not work on Lysono, but it could be that the company has now been ordered strict silence on their plans. And considering that the entire crew is tight-lipped, I would lean towards this explanation. Of course, an order of strict silence from Jon Con is actually rather significant. Chane seemed to be loose-lipped because he saw the Dornish allegiance to Aegon as a given. Jon Con and Lysono seem to have no such delusions. But the order is also rather curious, as Jon Con had planned on taking Storm's End quickly, so there would be no need for silence. By the time Arianna makes it north, the plan would have already been executed. The need for secrecy implies that Jon Con is up to something even after Arianna arrives. Perhaps Jon Con is not taking Storm's End so quickly. Or perhaps Jon Con wants to hide from Arianna that he only has a limited number of troops and is taking Storm's End by trickery. Again, Jon Con's plan is to signal to the realm, and specifically the Dornish, that the Golden Company is powerful when they are anything but. Learning that the Golden Company is weak and only took Storm's End by trickery would certainly affect the Dornish's decision whether to join them or not. Arianna decided to confront him openly. On the evening of their 5th day out of Mistwood, as they made camp beside the tumbled ruins of an old tower overgrown by vines and moss, she settled down beside him and said, "Is it true that you have elephants with you?" "A few," said Lysono Mar with a smile and a shrug. "And dragons? How many dragons do you have?" "One." "By which you mean the boy." "Prince Aegon is a man grown, princess." "Can he fly? Breathe fire?" The Lyseni laughed, but his lilac eyes stayed cold. So in yet another reference to Bran's journey north to Bloodraven, Arianna comes to a tumble-down tower on her journey to Bittersteel's legacy. If you recall, earlier, Arianna journeyed to an old defense tower that housed a Targaryen, mirroring Bran III, A Storm of Swords, and then she went up and down valleys and hid in a cave from the rain, mirroring Bran II, A Storm of Swords. And then she went cave exploring, mirroring Bran III, A Dance with Dragons, and now she's at a tumble-down tower covered in moss and vines, mirroring Bran I, A Storm of Swords. So in Bran I, A Storm of Swords, Bran and Jojen argue about whether Bran is a prince or a direwolf. Here, Arianna and Lysono argue about whether Aegon is a prince or a dragon. Arianna does get into some important issues. First, she asks about how many elephants the Golden Company has. Of course, the Golden Company's elephants are missing the last time we heard. We had rumors of them being in the Rainwood, but Arianna saw no sign of them, and the terrain did not seem like it would be conducive for elephants. Lysono, though, seems pretty happy and confident about the elephant situation. If the elephants aren't in the Rainwood, and they're not at Griffin's Roost, where are they? Arianna also cuts to the heart of the issue with the Golden Company and dragons. They don't have any, and they appear to be weak. And yet Lysono is trying to convince Arianna that they are in fact strong. "Do you play Cyvasse, my lord?" asked Arianna. "My father has been teaching me. I'm not very skilled, I must confess, but I do know that the dragon is stronger than the elephant." "The Golden Company was founded by a dragon. Bittersteel was half dragon and all bastard. I am no maester, but I know some history." So in the parallel scene with Bran and Jojen at Tumbledown Tower, Jojen was trying to convince Bran to go see Bloodraven. And here we find the conversation has meandered towards Bloodraven's rival, Bittersteel. Now it's rather interesting that Lysono has unusual pride in his company's founder. He says that Bittersteel was a dragon, meaning a Targaryen, and implies that the Golden Company's greatness derives from him. Of course, Bittersteel was a legitimized bastard, so it's up for debate whether he was part of House Targaryen. Arianna rebukes Lysono's claim and says that Bittersteel was a bastard. This mirrors her house's position during the Blackfyre Rebellion. House Martell rejected the legitimization of Bittersteel and Daemon Blackfyre and instead sided with Daeron. And of course, this had everything to do with the fact that Daeron was married to a Martell. In fact, this marriage is the entire reason that Dorne is part of the Seven Kingdoms. So it's understandable that Arianna disparages Bittersteel here. To accept Bittersteel's legitimacy is to accept Daemon Blackfyre's legitimacy and his claim over Daeron, which was all about bringing the Dornish into the realm. "You are still sellswords. If it please you, princess," he said, all silken courtesy, "we prefer to call ourselves a free brotherhood of exiles." "As you will. As free brothers go, your company stands well above the rest, I grant you. Yet the Golden Company has been defeated every time it has crossed into Westeros. They lost when Bittersteel commanded them, they failed the Blackfyre Pretenders, they faltered when Meleys the Monstrous led them." That seemed to amuse him. "We are at least persistent, you must admit, and some of those defeats were near things." So here we have Lysono refer to the Golden Company as a brotherhood, which is interesting as we have been given several parallels between the Brotherhood Without Banners and the Golden Company. It's uncertain what makes the group a free brotherhood. Free because they're a brotherhood from the free cities? Free because they're without houses and thus a brotherhood without banners? Free because they're self-governing? It's tough to say. The best historical parallel I could find is with companies like the East India Company or the Virginia Company. Members of these companies were often called free brothers, and these companies were free in that they were mostly autonomous and self-ruling. They also set out with the specific goal of establishing settlements in foreign lands. This does indeed sound like the Golden Company, which is more than just a sellsword group. They wish to settle in Westeros. This does make the Golden Company interesting politically, as one could argue that the Virginia Company's self-rule did eventually lead the world away from monarchy and towards democracy. Now, Arianna then proceeds to disparage the Golden Company by saying that they have a history of being losers. Now, I will say that George R.R. Martin has given us relatively few details about the later Blackfyre rebellions that the Golden Company took part in. We don't even know how many there were. At least 5, but maybe more. We know that the Golden Company participated in the 3rd and 4th Blackfyre rebellions, as well as the War of the Ninepenny Kings. But there's a good 24 years between the 4th Rebellion and Ninepenny, so there might be many more conflicts in there. In fact, Arianna implies that there were. She says that the Golden Company lost under Bittersteel, failed the Blackfyre Pretenders, and faltered with Meleys. Bittersteel died in the 4th Blackfyre Rebellion, and Meleys died in the War of the Ninepenny Kings. So it seems that Arianna is referring to some sort of non-Bittersteel and non-Meleys activity helping the Blackfyre Pretenders, somewhere between there. Now Lysono says that some of these defeats were near things. This is actually a tough comment to assess, as we really don't know very much about these wars to determine how close the Blackfires were to winning. Arianne doesn't argue the point, so I guess we can accept that it's true, but then again, Arianne is horrible at history. So Arianne counters Lysono by saying that some of the defeats were not near things. This statement seems to support the idea that there was at least one more Blackfire rebellion between the Fourth and the War of the Ninepenny Kings. After all, the two of them say some instead of one. So if at least a couple defeats were near things and a couple were not, we're looking at the Golden Company participating in at least 4 Blackfire rebellions. The company did not participate in the first or second Blackfire rebellions, so I'm guessing they were close to winning the third rebellion and the War of the Ninepenny Kings, but were not close to winning the fourth and possibly fifth Blackfire rebellions. Some were not, and those who die in near things are no less dead than those who die in routes. Prince Doran my father is a wise man and fights only wars that he can win. If the tide of war turns against your dragon, the Golden Company will no doubt flee back across the narrow sea as it has done before. As Lord Connington himself did after Robert defeated him at the Battle of the Bells. Dorne has no such refuge. Why should we lend our swords and spears to your uncertain cause? Now Arianne mentions that her father is wise and only supports wars that he can win. In A Dance with Dragons, Barristan says almost the same thing to Quentyn. Arianne also highlights the incredible risk of Dorne backing a bad cause. This all again highlights the ridiculousness of Doran's supposed plan to back Viserys. Viserys was a child with no support when Doran supposedly made the marriage pact between Viserys and Arianne. The action to support such an uncertain cause is so incredibly out of character for Doran that it seems that Doran must have a greater plan. Prince Aegon is your own blood, princess, son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia of Dorne, your father's sister. Daenerys Targaryen is our blood as well, daughter of King Aerys, Rhaegar's sister, and she has dragons, or so the tales would have us believe. Fire and blood. And so here Lysono begins to parrot the words of Jon Con's letter to the Dornish, claiming that they are obligated to Aegon through Elia of Dorne. If you remember, back in the Griffin Reborn chapter, Haldon Halfmaester actually recommended land, gold, and marriage to bring the Dornish over, but Jon Con refuses to offer any of these. Instead, all he has to offer is familiar obligation and the opportunity for vengeance. And even vengeance isn't looking too good without any dragons. And so family obligation is all we have left, and we already know that Arianne feels little of that, as she was ready to go to war against her brother. In fact, Arianne quickly crushes Lysono's weak claim about family. Daenerys is also family, that is, through King Daeron and Mariah Martell, another swipe at Bittersteel and the Blackfires. And Arianne seems to bring up kingly allegiance with the mention of King Aerys and Rhaegar. Now this topic hasn't been brought up much in the book, but there is some debate on who would be the rightful monarch between Aegon and Dany. On the one hand, Aegon is a male and would come before Dany according to the Council of 101, though this ruling is of highly debatable legitimacy and precedent. On the other hand, Aegon was actually disinherited by Aerys. Viserys was actually named Aerys' heir, and Viserys in turn named Dany his heir, so one could easily argue that Dany is the true monarch. Keep in mind, this is actually the same succession dispute in the first Dance of the Dragons. Rhaenyra was chosen heir by Viserys II, but other lords claimed that Aegon II was the rightful king because he was a man. Regardless, Arianne really makes all of these arguments on succession irrelevant by pointing out that Dany has dragons. Where is she? Half a world away on Slaver's Bay, said Lysono Mar. As for these purported dragons, I have not seen them. In Syvas, it is true, the dragon is mightier than the elephant. On the battlefield, give me elephants I can see and touch, and send against my foes, not dragons made of words and wishes. And so Lysono comes back with a fairly convincing argument. Elephants that are here beat dragons that aren't. But the fact that Lysono is bragging about elephants is a pretty big reveal. The Golden Company's elephants were lost, and previously Lysono claimed that only a few had been recovered. Now Lysono appears a bit more confident, implying that the elephants will be significant on the battlefield. It appears that the elephants have been found and will be a significant factor. But again, where are they? Princess lapsed into a thoughtful silence, and that night she dispatched her fourth raven to her father. And so this is the final raven that we hear about in this chapter. Going back, Arianna's first raven was from Weeping Town about the Golden Company raping and pillaging. Arianna's second raven was from Mistwood about the Golden Company stealing from the small folk and coercing women into sex. Arianna's third raven was with Chain about them trying to take Storm's End, and now Arianna's fourth raven is about them not having dragons. From the ravens, it wouldn't seem like Arianna would choose to make common cause with the Golden Company. They do not sound like an honorable lot, have no dragons, and are foolishly attacking an impregnable castle. And so I do wonder if these messages are going to be significant. Will there be consequences to this somewhat incorrect information being sent back to Doran? And this is a good place to stop. We'll see you in Arianna 2, Part 6.